Anybody that's not familiar with Josh Tapp yet, Josh is the host of the Lucky Titan podcast. And Josh, you want to tell me about about your podcast real quick?
Yeah, man, it's exciting. So we've been focusing pretty heavily on interviewing entrepreneurs who have really what I would say almost like great frameworks. We try to find people who've successfully built multiple companies past the seven-figure point, and we interview them about what are the frameworks they're using in their marketing, especially to grow their companies.
That's awesome. I'm honored that you've got me as a guest today. So thanks again for that.
Yeah, no problemo, man. Well, let's do this. I'm just going to intro you for our podcast purposes as well, but we'll hop in, man. So this is exciting.
Awesome. Sounds good.
All right. What is up, everybody? Josh Tapp here again, and welcome back to the Lucky Titan podcast. And today we're here with Curtis McCoy. Curtis and I have been friends for what, Curtis, like over a year now. So we've had quite a few interactions with each other, and I've been really excited to work with him because Curtis is really, I don't even know how to explain it. Just like the extraordinaire when it comes to projects. This guy has built multiple multi-million-dollar companies. He's a very highly published author, has a Facebook community of what, almost 300,000 people at this point.
It's like 309 right now on the
Yeah,
main
like
group.
310,000 people. Like that's just crazy. Hardly anybody ever hits that point. So he's got some amazing secrets and frameworks and tips to help us to really learn how to scale our businesses. So Curtis, say what's up to everybody and we'll hop in.
Hey, thanks so much. I appreciate you guys. And if you want, check out the Success Motivation Inspiration group. I'm excited to be on your show today, Josh.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Absolutely. Go check out that group. I mean, that's the group with 310,000 people on Facebook. It's a great group to go get your daily motivation, but honestly, more recently, it's become a really great place to meet other successful entrepreneurs. Honestly, we've seen a lot of really cool people coming out of that group. So Curtis, I want you to give us a little bit of background on you and how you got into business, because I mean, you have a really intriguing story.
So yeah, I've got like I said, kind of a unique story. I had built I built a number of different companies. I think my first business I started at 13 years old, like the typical kid does, pushing I tied a lawnmower onto the back of my bicycle and ride it up and down the street, and figured out the first few lawns I tried to do didn't make a lot of money. I had a hard time selling it, so I went back home, got on, I think it was Microsoft Word, or maybe Paint, Microsoft Paint or something, and created some little flyers, little professional looking flyers, and downloaded an image for it and business cards and stuff. And I went around and started handing out flyers, and figured out from that young age, it was in the retirement community. So I was mowing these lawns in really fancy places that, we'd get done. They'd ask what my price was before we started. I'd say, well, yeah, I'll work all day if you want, and then just you pay me at the end of the day what you think I was worth. And in that market, a bunch of retired seniors that didn't have young kids around, that was a absolute killer profit center because, I'd go work for a couple hours and get tipped a couple $100. So I realized as I was getting older here that was probably one of the best businesses I ever had. I don't think I made less than $100 an hour, all summer as a 13-year-old kid. And so I continued building businesses, ended up launching a cosmetic medical laser franchise and a pharmaceutical company, as well as a nutritional supplement company. And like I said, it had done very well financially. And I started having 7 to 10 seizures a week. And pretty soon I got to where I lost the ability to speak, lost half the use of my body. So it's kind of like they thought it was a TIA stroke. And so I went from making more money in a week than most of my friends made in a day. I mean, in a year. And then went from that to losing the ability to talk, live alone. I was sleeping on my parents' floor, 35 miles from the nearest stoplight, and just a complete change of lifestyle there, going from making money to being absolutely financially destitute. And so then started building back, launched Best Cellular, telecom company, and have now published 4 books and recovered for the brain cancer, and everything is good again. So kind of got a unique story there, like you said.
Yeah, I was saying very few people I think can really bounce back that way. We've seen, and it was one of the coaches that we were soliciting. It was actually really funny because he told us, he's like, I actually won't coach you yet. And I was like, why? He's like, you haven't cycled yet. I'm like, what does that even mean? Right. And if you're not familiar with that term, I mean, it's meaning like, hey, you haven't built up a company that was worth millions of dollars and then lost it all. He's like, you'll drink your own Kool-Aid until that happens. So I'm praying that never happens to us, but I'm not naive enough to think that it's not a possibility. So I think it's really cool that you're able to do that and bounce back. And why telecommunications? Why did you get into that in the first place?
So I was running a couple of cell phone stores, managing cell phone stores up in Denver, and we had an owner that the guy owned a whole bunch of different businesses. I met him one time, worked there for a few weeks, ended up, they moved me up to management, and no guidance. I had to figure out how to run the cell phone businesses, run the retail stores before I ever knew anything about running retail businesses or, doing the old iPhone repairs and stuff like that. So that was kind of a good way to get thrown into that industry. And then when I was diagnosed with brain cancer, I had been, I really enjoyed the telecom industry, but I was also running the medical franchise and the other businesses. And so I moved out, lost everything, bankruptcy, had to live in my parents', sleep on the floor there. And the doctors had actually given me 60 to 90 days to live, oncologist up at Swedish Medical in Denver. And so, as that was all going on, they had told my mom, make me comfortable, do a trip to Disneyland or something, try to make some memories before I passed. And as that was all going on, my mom was saying, hey, why don't we, you lost the ability to drive and can't live alone and all that, but why don't we look at starting another business in Hotchkiss? Do you want to do another medical franchise? Do you want to do a weight loss clinic? Do you want to do, what do you want to do? And I'm thinking, okay, I've got 60 to 90 days to live. Why don't we just, let me lay around and die here? And,
right.
But my mom was kind of reminded me that, the doctors don't guarantee when you're going to die. They don't know what day you're going to live. I mean, what day you're going to be done. So, so we started a little cell phone repair business. I was doing that on the kitchen table at my folks' house there, and just marketing and getting on the internet and trying to promote a lot. And pretty soon that turned into opening a retail store and then opening a nationwide telecommunications business. And it's been it's not that that's my passion. That was just another great foot to get back in the door and start my next company.
Right. Well, and I think it's, from when I've entered your life journey, right? From what I've been seeing is that it seems like your passion really lies within helping other people, and in the leadership sector. All of your books are about that. And I think you're one of the few people who can uniquely teach that, because a lot of people are teaching leadership and they've never actually done it. They haven't been in a leadership role. And yours is a really unique role because you've done it both in a company with your employees, but you've also done it where people are actually following you. And I would consider you a true influencer because you're actually moving markets instead of, posting selfies on Instagram because you're cute, right?
Yeah, you won't see me in a bikini picture probably, but.
Oh man, that's good. No, I really think that's one of the main reasons why I think you're succeeding at such a high level, because you have been able to take your experience from those different areas, and your story is really an inspiration. So I want to ask you this though, because you just wrote your most recent book, How to Be Successful, Think Like a Leader. I mean, what's kind of the premise of the book, and how can that apply to our entrepreneurial audience here?
So that's the fourth book that I published, but it's the first, sorry about that. It's the fourth one I published. The first one I actually wrote though. So I spent about 3 years writing, interviewing everyone from the inventor of the MP3 player to, one of the number one Navy SEALs team snipers in history. Jeff Wobig was SEAL Team 5, SEAL Team 7 on Operation Rhino Wars on the Discovery Channel. Interviewed Eric Payne, who's a mergers and acquisition specialist. So all kinds of very high-level guys that have just done incredible things with their life. And I mixed that in with stories of, true stories of, a homeless guy. First one is a homeless guy that I met. I was trying to, he's just on the side of the road and ended up cussing me out as I was trying to bring him some snacks and a handful of cash. And so the next story is a contrast of that with a guy that I met that was, when I met him, he was driving a twin turbo Ferrari, custom, probably had 30 grand in engine work. And when I started talking to this guy, he had also been homeless years ago, but went from homeless to driving a Ferrari. The other guy was still homeless and cussing out people on the side of the road. So there's a lot of stuff like that in the book, just stories of how to actually become successful no matter where you're at right now. And So I wrote that first book. I've made plenty of edits to it over the years and published 3 additional self-published books beforehand to make sure that I knew how to reach bestseller status before actually publishing that 4th book. So it's kind of a neat, thing. With I was doing that to try to help inspire others and share, how do these super successful leaders, what's their definition of success, and how do they live their life differently than the rest of us do?
Yeah, well, and I want to highlight something there because you almost said it in passing, and I think it's like one of the biggest marketing lessons was, instead of just trying to launch your best book right out of the gate, you said, hey, let me launch some great content, test it out, figure out how to become a bestseller, and then really launch, the book you really wanted to sell. I mean, that's a testament to true marketing, in my opinion.
Yeah, and that's definitely not the easy way to go. But the guys that buy their way to the top of the bestseller list, I would do that if I could. If I could afford it, I would absolutely drop a couple $1 million to make the book a bestseller because that's. I mean, it's worth it. May not be ethical, but it works.
It's doable.
And guys make a whole lot of money off of buying their way to the top of the bestseller list. I did not at the time. By the end of my 3rd book, I think I only had 150,000 followers total. And so I still waited, kept growing the personal brand. I did that for months after the 3rd book even to make sure that I had a couple 100,000 active, loyal followers. And then when How to Be Successful, Think Like a Leader was published, again, that was self-published, so I'm not paying a portion, any kind of a publisher, publishing house. But yeah, I was just trying to make sure that I knew that I wasn't wasting that 3 years of writing and studying and researching and, going to meetings with these successful guys. So knew that I couldn't get a second chance to make that a bestseller. So that was
Yeah. And I feel like that's kind of the story, right? Is really trying to figure out, what the market wants, but also, like you're saying, just being, I feel like market conscientious is the word that kind of comes to mind. I mean, there's a lot of people out there who are focusing too heavily on just making a great product. And some of the best books never sell a copy. And some of the best courses never sell a copy. And, so many services don't get offered to the world because they don't take that time to get to know their market. So I want to ask you that too, along that same vein. You've grown a following of 300,000 people.
That's in one of the groups. Yeah.
Right. And total, what's kind of your total reach at this point?
Close to 700,000 active followers now. But it's, like I said, it's grown pretty well. So now that I'm on Amazon Fire TV and some of the other, the media creation channels, that's helped out a lot as well with recognition. And one of the things we talked about before the show, getting to where you've built enough of an audience to be featured on the Google Knowledge Panel is just a massive free benefit you can get by building that following. So
right.
That's one of the things that I was in a group discussion the other day. And a guy out of England had asked, he had never heard of me before, never heard of my books. And so I mentioned something about having him as a guest on my podcast. And he said, oh, yeah, right. Have your people talk to my people. We can figure out what the fee is worth or whatever. So he's trying to get me to pay him to be, just kind of blowing it off. And so he asked his audience, said, hey, has anybody heard of M. Curtis McCoy? Is this guy real or does he know anything or whatever? And so one of the guests on his podcast Googled me. I guess it's not a podcast, but it was like a live event. And so we're going along and so the guy said, so we're back and forth. I'm trying to get him as guest. And again, he had no clue who I was. And so he said, well, how do I know you're real? And so I just responded, Google me. And so I had no clue with the power that held, especially in these other countries, people that were guests. So everybody is Googling. He paused the live feed there, and there was probably 25 people that started commenting the books that I'd published, the places I'd spoke, all these different things, just made me sound like a superhero. And I was just thinking, okay, Googling me is the easiest way to find the easiest way to figure out if I was legit or not. But so that another guy right after the episode contacted me, and he wants to make shirts. He's got a screen printing business, and he's going to make T-shirts that say "Google me," signed M. Curtis McCoy. So that was kind of a cool thing. But yeah, if you can get just good I mean, if you can get featured on the Google Knowledge Panel, that is a massive thing. It'll just generate traffic without any real input on your side.
Yeah. Love that. See, and that's cool because I mean, it's basically allowing the internet to raise their hands and vote, saying this guy is worth listening to. And that's where I think people don't understand that engagement, I don't feel like really proves that. I think it has to do with when you have to defend your own honor and other people start to do it for you. I think that's when you've really kind of proven it, you know? I mean, that's when people get in arguments on your ads, right? And your followers are defending you on your ads. That's when, you know, you've really made it.
Now that's a good point you made there. One of the reasons that I don't ever, discredit or delete negative comments. So if I've ran a sponsored post and someone says, "Oh, this guy's a con artist," or "This guy's a scam," or whatever the ridiculous negative comments are, I'll leave those on. Leave those up, because if you've got one guy that, there's a million ads on the internet. You see ads all day long on Facebook, and every one of them is trying to sell you or promote something. So you got the trolls and stuff that get in there and make those comments, and a lot of people delete the negative comments to keep their feed clean. I'll leave them up because pretty soon, if you've got one of them we had recently, over 150 people responded to a negative comment that somebody had made about one of my books. So when you've got one guy that's made a negative comment and 150 responses saying, "Man, this book taught me this," or "This is great," it was a bestseller in this category, in that category, in that category. That's like you said, letting somebody else defend your honor is a whole lot easier than doing it yourself.
You look like a wimp if you try to do it yourself. That's what I feel like.
Exactly.
Like, you're mean to me. Like, you're flaming me. Yeah. I think it's so funny because in the digital space, there's so much movement. There's so much noise going on, and you don't need to try to contribute to the noise. What you need to do is stand out, right? And so the way you stand out is by let it roll off your shoulders,
Yep.
One of my favorite lines is spitballs off a battleship, right?
That's awesome.
not going to do much against the battleship, right?
Yeah.
So,
but now also, if you've got so here's something when I was real small, I'm like trying to gain my first 1,000 followers on the M. Curtis McCoy page, and working my guts out, and I've got 100 followers, and somebody makes a negative comment. You want to get rid of that if it's not a true, if it's not something that you want the world to see, because when you got 100 followers, if 100% of them are not dedicated, super loyal followers, that one negative comment can drag you under. So
right.
You just need to,
because you really haven't built a loyal, what I would call a real following.
Yep.
You're in the vanity metrics at that point, right? You have 100 people who've decided, I'm just going to like your page because it looks pathetic.
or because they're your neighbor or your grandma, or
right. It's your mom with 5 Facebook profiles trying to support your business, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, Curtis, I mean, I think you really covered a lot of really good points, but how can people actually get your book? I mean, where's the best place to get it?
So if you just Google how to be successful, that'll show up. If you connect with me on Facebook, it's on Amazon and all the major platforms. So, all the major book distributors. You can go to mcm.team is a site that I use that's got, recent media appearances, the books, all this stuff on there. So that might be the easiest.
Make sure you go check that all out, everybody. And so that the link is also mcm.team. So that's for mcurtismccoy.team if you didn't get that. Make sure that you go check out his stuff, buy his book. It's going to be a great read for you, helping you move forward with your business and with your life. So Curtis, before we sign off, can you give us one final parting piece of guidance? If you could say there's one thing you would hope people would take away from this interview, what would that be?
So I'll split that into two things. If you are thinking you want to become an entrepreneur, trying to figure out how to start your own business or whatever, but for a fact that you're not the kind of person that's self-motivated, you do really good with a boss micromanaging everything you do, I would say probably don't take that step and become an entrepreneur unless you are willing to step out and, sleep in the back of your retail stores and live the terrible life that it takes for the next few years to achieve success. But on the other side, if you've got a goal that you want to be, that you want to pursue, and you're getting some negative feedback from, husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, friends that you're hanging out at the bar with on Friday night, look at who you're surrounding yourself with and make sure you're taking advice just from folks that you would trade positions with.
Love that.
Every failure is an opportunity to learn something and improve the next time.
Totally worth it. Well, I do appreciate you coming on today, Curtis. I think this was an excellent interview. It's going to be a lot of fun to carry it on from here.
Appreciate that, man. Hey, thanks again. I sure appreciate you having me on the show. Hey, so yeah, anybody that has not checked out Josh Tapp's podcast yet, it's The Lucky Titan, and that's available on pretty much every platform, Apple Podcasts and all the Spotify and all the major ones, right?
Yeah, I really appreciate you following, leaving us reviews. If you hate it, leave a review. If you love it, leave a review. I'm happy to see them all. We'll see the people come out of the woodwork and defend my honor, right?
That's awesome. I don't know that anybody would leave a bad review on your podcast, but got some great guests on there. All right, thanks, brother. I appreciate you having me on the show today. Thank you.
Yeah, you as well, man. Thanks.